All right. Welcome back to another episode of Side Note, the podcast dedicated to underground dance music and all things related. Real pleasure today to have the man himself, Ray Kash, in the house. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a
Yes.
month or so. I feel terrible.
No, a lot of back and forth, but look, man, like you're a super busy guy. You're running a night, multiple like times a month, I feel like, and I see that your gig schedule is pretty effing packed. And actually, I guess like just to start off, like, you know, if you could talk about some of your recent gigs lately and kind of what you've been up to, you know, last month or so, because I see like on the gram, like you have like you've been everywhere.
Definitely. So like this past week, I had kind of a busy week. Tuesday was the Temple, and then we had Thursday at Rasputin, Friday at Sound, and Saturday at Subculture, and then Sunday we did a collaboration for a fundraiser for this No Res Gourmet with our friend Firaz, who's a host at one of the main guys at Casbah at Burning Man, and they make over 3,000 meals for the homeless in downtown. Wow. So I did the musical programming on Sunday. So it was definitely a long week, and it's funny because that's usually my long weeks every gig are so drastically different than the other ones.
Right.
Because each one of those gigs are like totally different sound, different vibes.
Right. So I guess, you know, like with such a busy gig schedule, like how do you manage just kind of staying rested for all of that? And to your point in terms of like the different vibes, like how do you sort of figure out like what vibe to bring, you know, once you're at that show?
Yeah, as far as the rest go, I mean, it was a lot easier, I feel like, before 2019, I was going through it, not even thinking about rest time or just kind of like a machine. I was on autopilot. And then 2020 happened. I really got used to and I'm getting older too, I'm 33, is as you're getting older and you've been doing it for a long time, definitely when you rest, you realize how much better you feel.
Right.
So I don't think I have a formula now that I'm doing better, but I do need rest more.
Right.
I don't know if I'm getting it, but I definitely feel like I need it more than before. If I have a couple of days, I definitely got to come home and sleep. I don't do after hours that much. Like I play a show, I go home, especially if I have a busy week.
Got it.
So kind of discipline, I guess, in that sense. And as far as the vibe goes, is one of my first residencies in LA was Sound Nightclub. And the one thing I really wanted to master when I started doing DJing full time was just art of opening. I really wanted to take that seriously because I feel like it wasn't a lot of good openers or a lot of people weren't caring about opening. And a lot of friends that I had in the industry, they always said who were bigger than me, they were saying how much they appreciate good openers. So just because of that, I learned to adapt to different sounds. So for example, as you know, with Sound Nightclub, sometimes they bring a big tech house DJ, sometimes techno, sometimes deep house. So as a resident, if they throw you with an artist, you had to kind of adapt to their sound. And because I was never like a known for producer, I always loved DJing. So I like different sound. It's not even, it was forced. So I like different subgenres. So just because I had that with experience for so long, I think it's easier for me that any room you throw me, that within the umbrella of underground, I can kind of get the vibe.
Got it.
And go from there.
Yeah, man, because it's like, you know, like as a bedroom DJ who, you know, maybe plays out once or twice a year, you know, like when I'm at home, I'm just like slamming, like, this is what I would play if I was playing like the big room to the big crowd. Yeah. And then, you know, like it doesn't really occur to me like, oh, like if I were to actually be out there, you know, it would probably be opening for people. And that's like a whole different art form, right? Because like you're kind of building a vibe and setting it up for, you know, the headliner. There was some, I think it was Saeed Yunan or something on the worst
I think
techno
I know
meme.
Who is he talking about too.
Oh, really?
That's even worse.
It's a local guy like here? Okay, well, we don't have to name names.
No, of course not. I mean, it's true. Honestly, like the way I became friends with a lot of these headliners was because opening for them properly. And I feel like they respect you a lot more. The reason it makes it a little bit more challenging is obviously it's easy to come and bang it out, get the top 10 or top 100 on Beatport.
Right.
Then you got to think about the whole night as a journey. You know, like if the party starts at 10 and ends at 2 in LA, New York at 4, or even after hours, is you have a duty to like kind of make it the journey, like slowly get there. If we start at 10 o'clock banging out with heavy hitters, sure, you get the dance floor excited, and what are you going to do to the headliner? If you brought the energy here, where are they gonna take it from there?
Right.
Just gotta keep going higher and higher, or like they have to stop the music and start it again. So it's just, I really think it's a form. It's a lot of psychology behind opening properly. And what I've learned, I always tell the newer DJs as well. I used to be the same way, because the mentality here is like, okay, this is my moment. I got my biggest gig.
I gotta shine, yeah.
I need them to remember me. And if I play soft, they're not gonna remember me. Which is, again, if you do it properly, they will remember. And the ones who matter will remember.
Right.
Like I promise you, if you kill it and the dance floor will love it, you'll never get booked again at that proper venue or with that proper headliner, because they don't respect it.
Right.
So it's just like kind of reading the room and going based on that, I guess.
Right. Yeah, you know, I've been told that sort of the formula to kind of build yourself over time is to eventually throw your own party. And then you kind of, you book like a headline, or like a kind of well-known headliner, and then you kind of open for them. And if they like you, they'll remember you. And that's how it builds, right? Like, because you're creating relationships with, I mean, is that kind of...
A little bit. I guess I'm actually super against that. Like we had a discussion the other day on social media that there was like these, a local DJ complaining that they're not getting booked a lot in 2021. And a lot of the comments were from other DJs. They're like, dude, if you're not getting booked, just throw your own parties. And I'm super against that, actually.
Okay.
I believe that if you are making a party or making an event, it shouldn't be about you. It shouldn't be like, and I see that a lot. And if the theory is, this is why I think LA scene is specifically, especially recent days, feels oversaturated. So you have 40, 50 parties, just different vibes, which there's nothing wrong with expressing yourself. I was always a firm believer from the day I started Temple that this is not going to be a project about me. This is a project for our community, for the guest. I played at Temple probably in the 6 years that we've been running it on and off, probably 4 times. And it was my birthdays. Okay. Yeah, just because I have a couple of rules. One of them is my name should never be on top. It's about my guest. My font shouldn't be bigger than others. That I should never put myself prime times. The whole thing is I'm curating this night for the community, for the guest experience. So if everybody who didn't get a booking started their own party, and we just left with the parties for like DJs to get booked.
Right,
and I feel like honestly, it's gonna sound a little harsh, if you're not getting booked and your solution is just throw a party to book yourself, I don't know, is that a good look to just play your own parties?
Right.
You have to be on a high enough demand eventually that people book you for their parties. It's a good idea. It's been a strategy for the longest time in our industry, kind of like a gig swap.
Yeah.
I think the theory is not more so like what you said, that you throw a party, you open, and then you get recognition. I think their theory is more like you throw a party and then you book other promoters and then they book you. Kind of like a gig exchange scenario.
Right. Like throwing a party for yourself as the headliner, obviously. Not a good look.
Yeah. And I've been to promoters that like they book us and they put themselves at a prime time. I think that's crazy.
Right.
You know, then the whole point is if you are throwing a party for your guests.
Yeah. Especially if you're going through the trouble of booking other people, like you obviously want to showcase those people. Well, yeah, I do kind of appreciate that, you know, you're kind of limiting the ego in terms of like what you're doing. Cause I feel like in our space, you know, that's definitely that's definitely not.
I mean, that was the main formula I had with Temple was music first. I don't care about who you are, what you accomplished. And we had 2 category kind of. One side of it was new DJs, which is making me so proud. I have at least, I want to say 15, 20, 25 DJs that their first gig ever was Temple. And then I saw them to become an artist like years later, and I see them playing bigger shows. Some of them producing. Like it's rewarding to see them start from there. So one side was for if you're new, but you're a music lover, I'll book you. And the other side was if you're a veteran DJ and you don't have an ego and everything you said, this is one place you can freely express yourself.
Right.
Because obviously it took a long time for us to get there. And even for me, I was always a DJ. As a curator, I had a lot of flaws in the beginning. And when the first year I would book, I had no idea about curation. I was just like, I'm going to put 3 DJs together. And what ended up happening is I would put a techno DJ at like 9 p.m., blasting it, and then 12 a.m. or 11 p.m., I would put a deep house DJ. So the night didn't have a flow musically.
Right.
And that only comes from experience. Like, these are the things that there's no blueprint for our industry. Everything we learn from big to small, we learn as we go. So with one thing I got really good at after a couple of years, for my event at least, was curation. I learned everybody's sound in LA. I've learned who to put before who. Like the night, like as I was telling you before, is we don't have a theme in Temple. We don't have like one sound. It's not a techno party. It's not a minimal party.
Got it.
But usually if we have a minimal night, like next week, for example, I have Kana, my friend. I have Alex Pastor, he's blown up. I have Arthur, my resident, and Mesma, who's a resident at Into the Woods.
Yeah, Mesme's awesome.
Amazing. But they all musically make sense. These are the people who like to push the limits. They're minimal, they're trippy, they're psychedelic. So I got good at mixing the same vibe for a night. Or I have like a disco kind of night, house night. So it helps a lot for the kind of flow of the night.
Right.
So those things, and as I said, the other rule I had with the veteran DJs, like when they ask me, even friends, what do you want me to play? I always say, play whatever you feel like you can't play anywhere else. Because as artists, even myself, a lot of the times we don't get to play what we like. A lot, especially as a career DJ, a lot of the times we like what we play, but a lot of it is a format. When you play at a club, there's a format.
Right.
A lot of it is 4 to the floor. You got to make people dance. There's timing and all that stuff. So it's very rare that you can, especially in LA, you can fully experiment.
Do what you want, yeah.
Yeah, and the good thing we got blessed with after all these years, it's a Tuesday night, it's an industry night, so a lot of the crowd who come there, they expecting for like proper music. So we rarely get one person come to a DJ be like, hey, that wasn't good, or play something I can dance to, this shit that you hear at the club.
Do you have any Daft Punk?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, actually, I guess we should tell the audience, for folks who don't know, that you throw like a very sort of respected night here called Temple Tuesdays. I guess it moves venues, but you've been doing it for 6 years. And yeah, I think in the time, I've been to a few, in the time that you've been doing it, I think you've definitely showcased kind of a very wide swath of kind of rising talent. And I guess to your point as well, like as a DJ, I feel like on the micro level, you're thinking about your own journey and like, oh, I want my set to be a journey. But then, as the organizer or promoter of a night, you're thinking macro level, like how all of these like separate journeys are going to fit together, which is like a, I think it's something that kind of people don't think about, right? Because as a consumer, and I'm primarily a consumer of rave, like I just go to a party and I'm like, oh yeah, that was great curation, but don't really pay much thought to it. So I guess taking a step back, you've been doing this a long time, like I guess talk to us about kind of your entry into rave and DJing and kind of like how it progressed.
So yeah, I grew up in New York, and my brothers were older than me. They were in the party scene. So before even I turned 21, I used to steal their IDs and go to the clubs. And both my brothers are way taller than me, so they would always make a joke at the door. Depends on the bouncer. They're like, oh, what happened? You shrunk? Because they're like over 6 feet. And one of the main clubs that I like really blew my mind around my time was Pasha, when Pasha was still in New York.
Yeah. I used to go, so I lived in New York like from around 2006 to 2010. Is that kind of around when?
Exactly.
Okay.
So around exactly that time, after 2006, around high school time. And I remember the residents were like Danny Tenaglia, Jonathan Peters, Roger Sanchez.
Yeah, these are like the legendary.
Like they would
names,
do like all night marathon. Back then, I feel like everything in New York was marathon sets, just nobody was calling it marathon.
Right.
It's like the DJ would come in and then play 8 hours. Like Danny Tenaglia has a lot of talks about this. How like it was just their norm. It wasn't like open air, close air, this, that.
Yeah, and it wasn't like special, like extended.
No, it wasn't
set.
honestly a hype. It was just, and one thing I always loved about music, I'm sure you've been there, you remember, is in New York was always mainly about music. It was never glorified DJ. Like people knew who the DJ were, but even when you walked to Pasha, it wasn't every light on the DJ. Everybody was just staring at the DJ.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, a lot of them, the music in New York, I felt like, even before, like in the early 90s, it was always in the background. Like the idea was like, it's not to glorify the DJ, it's more about the sound, it's about music, which I even experienced mostly in like places like Germany that everybody loved. What I always say about it that blew my mind is like, they don't care about the artists, they care about sound. In Europe a lot, I've noticed that. Like in LA, for example, if 2 DJs play the same exact set, let's say hypothetically, just me and Solomon, I promise you Solomon played it better than me. Because it's not about what's being played, it's more about who's playing it.
Right.
So we are a very trendy city in general. Obviously, I'm not talking about the underground, I'm just talking as a whole in the industry. But yeah, for me, it's like I started it in New York, just going to these places, blew my mind. And I had couple friends who were DJs, so I was playing with their equipment. And around like end of 2010 or mid 2010, I moved to LA, bought my own equipment, and just played around. And honestly, part of going back to Temple, that's why I created it, because I personally feel everybody has their own experience. When I moved to LA, I felt like it was so hard for me to get within the industry. We made a joke, even with my East Coast friends, we said that I was like, LA felt like a cult, and they didn't want to let outsiders
Interesting.
in.
Yeah. So what kind of resistance were you getting? Like
Just in general, like I was the outsider. You know, nobody knew. They wanted to only work with people they knew and they felt comfortable. Doesn't matter how much I said, like, hey, look at this, look at my demo I made, or whatever the case was.
Right.
So I think the first jump I got was I got a little small residency at Playhouse. I was playing at their upstairs room for a while. That was the first like kind of club experience in LA. And then sound, I think, was the biggest thing that happened to me. And sound, I'm being honest, like I think I annoyed them so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did you get your break?
Yeah, I don't even remember exactly. I think I annoyed Mark and Artie. It's funny, all of the team is from New York. I don't know if you know them, Artie, Kobe.
No.
Which Kobe is like, he knows the music. He's the owner. He's very understanding of the culture. So they always did a great booking. That was my place in LA that I felt like, okay, this is the first place in a bigger scale that's bringing proper music. So I think I annoyed them so much to give me an opportunity. And I never forget, I was opening for Hosh from Dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I opened, and I remember like, I never met Kobe. Kobe came at the end of my set, tapped me in the back. He was like, that was a good set. And they all looking at me weird. I'm like, what happened? They're like, oh, dude, he never says to anybody that you play good. He's like, I think you're good. And then they made me a resident. I think the first year I played 13, 14 times in sound. And my biggest booking that year was I opened for Marco Corolla.
Awesome.
For Music on Showcase. And that went very well. Music on started following me on Instagram. So that was like kind of like my first introduction that finally people started like, okay, I know who he is, or like just kind of listening to my sound. And then from there, it's just like, as I said, I really got into the art of opening. I started like diversifying my sound, and I really got into the Burning Man sound. So I never can, that's the thing with me, if you ask anybody from our industry, like, what's Ray's sound? I don't think anybody has an answer, because I don't even have an answer. Because I don't have a sound. I like different kind of music depending on when I play. For a while, I did get the Burning Man stamp, because I was playing a lot of shows and I became a burner DJ.
Like a lot of like kind of like playa tech, like Libra.
Yeah, exactly.
Style. Yeah. Okay.
So it's so funny. So many people they're like, oh, you don't like techno. I'm like, I love techno, but I never get booked for techno really, because that's not what I'm known for. Right. They just usually give you a label of what you play for.
Right. So do you find that that's actually helpful or hurtful? Because I feel like certain DJs, they only want to be associated with a certain sound. And then other DJs maybe are more kind of varied. Do you have a preference, or would you have a preference either way?
It's funny because I've been thinking about this a lot, and I talk to my friends who are very established producers, DJs, and they always tell me the same thing, almost all of them. If you go on the production, which I've been kind of like getting into production the past 2 years, I went to school for Ableton. Just like I have bad discipline. I start projects, I never finish them, which is the oldest story is time.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I definitely, even with the Spain move, I really want to like focus more on just finishing tracks. But what I keep hearing in my perfect world, I like to think that I can play every sound and still get recognized. But if you really want to kind of go to the next step or get recognized for your sound or get booked for your sound, you cannot do that.
Right.
As a DJ, I can freely, in my town, play a different sound and get booked often. But if I want to really get more established, I got to pick probably one sound.
Right, you kind of have to have a brand.
And from what I understand, even asking advice, I'm like, hey, I like playing all sounds. I'm like, even in that scenario, you have to pick a sound, get established, get recognized. When you become to a level that you get booked regardless, then you come and experiment. You don't know a lot of DJs who like are established, like we said, DJ Koza or something like that. Play different,
play
like
everything. You don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
people kind of want to know.
Which is the name of the industry. It's kind of like you have to pick one sound.
Right. So I guess ideal world, like what lane do you think you would pick?
The past couple of years, I've been really into that indie sound, like Red Axis.
Okay.
Like Economist, like this trippy melodic.
Yeah, yeah, like kind of like the trippy new disco.
I've always liked that sound. I feel like if I would produce, I probably would like to produce that. But who knows? I mean, again, for me, it's always about, I really like the journey more than the destination. I grew up with anxiety. That's the reason I got into DJing.
Interesting.
I tried everything, like meditation, even till today, everybody says meditate. Doesn't work for me. The only thing that calmed me down, I never had an expectation thinking it's going to become a career. So I just did it. The only thing that genuinely calmed me down was just playing music. And slowly it became part of a career, I guess.
Wow. So like all the gigging that you do is actually kind of like therapy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, with anything, it's like when it becomes a business, there's times that it is stressful as well. But overall, when I play music, I feel the most calm majority of the time. So because of that in general is like what I meant by like destination. A lot of DJs, like the question that comes up, where do you see yourself in 10 years? What's your goal? Who do you want to be? I honestly don't think I have any of those. I'm 33. I've been doing this over between 10 to 14 years on and off, and 5 to 6 years full time. And every year I do a little bit, tiny bit better than last year. I'm happy. As long as I can, this was my goal for myself. As long as I can pay my basic needs and continue doing this, I'm happy. I'm not trying to buy a Lamborghini for it. Right. And I'm be lying if I say I'm against it if a crazy opportunity comes.
Of course.
But I'm not chasing that. You know what I mean? So my goal is just to be able to continue to do it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Like to your point, right? Like it's about the journey, not the destination. And I think, just to be in a position where you can do what you love full time, and be able to survive off of that is like, I feel like such a, lucky position to be in. Because a lot of the DJs I talk to on here, they still kind of have other stuff going on. They want to be doing it full time. If I could be a full time DJ, it would be awesome, right? Yeah. So I think to kind of be one of those rare people who has broken through is like remarkable. And then who knows where it goes, right?
Yeah.
But just the fact that you can subsist on this alone is like amazing. So I guess to bring it back to Temple a little more, like how did you come up with that? What were some of like the major challenges in terms of like getting that together? Is it venue? Is it stuff that I wouldn't have even have thought of?
Probably. I mean, when we started, I started Temple the first year was once a month. The reason I picked the name Temple, a lot of people don't know. There's an old track from 90s by John Cutler named "It's Yours." I love the lyrics.
With the diva singing. Like super vocal.
And the way he talks about it is like, if you find a temple, do you have the knowledge to enter the temple? It's yours. So it's talking about this holy place of music that you go through dirty streets to find it. It's just resonated with me so much. I'm like, that's kind of what I like to have.
I can hear the song like in my head right now. Like I want to sing it into the mic, but I'm not going to
do it. Hit me with it. We'll edit it later. That was like kind of, I'm like, oh, that makes sense with what I have in my mind. And the funny thing is like everything, like think about all the stories you hear about somebody having the idea that they think it's cool. Everybody bashed on it in the beginning. Everyone's like, dude, it's Tuesday, it'll never work. So every promoter, every person I reached out, they didn't want to work with me. They're like, it's a risky day, it's the middle of the week, no one does it. And I tell you why I picked, this is how respectful I've always been to my peers. The reason I picked Tuesday wasn't because, I thought Tuesday is a good day. Is Monday was happening with Monday Social still with Freddie.
Monday Night Social.
Wednesday with Cyrilla and them where they had clinic.
Yep.
And then there was on and off Thursday and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm like, I don't want to step on anybody's foot. The only day available was Tuesday. As hard as it was, I'm like, if I want to pick one, it's going to be Temple Tuesday. And Temple, I already had the name. It kind of made sense. So in the beginning, it was a little bit more challenging because we did it once a month. And 9 out of 10, it was empty. It was like 5-10 people would show up. So, but I didn't let it demotivate me. I always loved it for the music. So we booked, and then I have a friend, his name is Michael. He was a general manager at Pig and Whistle.
Yep.
So I don't know if you ever went to Sunday Sanctuary.
No.
So there's a room in the back of the Pig and Whistle that turned into kind of like a lounge, but very good sound system. So he's like, hey, why don't you do Tuesdays here? Like, do you want to try it? It's like, yeah, let's do weekly. So we started it like every project is, the first couple of weeks is always a slam. People come, check it out. They know who you are. Just to keep it consistently is hard. Again, this is always a passion project for me. I'm not making money from it. So for us to be able to continue to do so, and I was always, just being a New Yorker on top of it, I was always transparent. So I would tell the friends, I'm like, listen, I'm not making money. This is what we're doing. We're not charging cover. Almost 90% of the time and the DJs play for me for free. Because they understand that's the passion project for them too. They understand that I'm not trying to screw them. It's not one of those promoters talk. I don't make anything. It's just for us to have a platform to network, play music, hang out. So the first year it was like ups and downs. As I said, the first challenge that I guess a lot of people don't know about is when you start is you don't know who to put with who. And then everybody, once the word got out, like I would get emails every day or text message or DMs. Hey, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. And eventually I got a little bit more organized. So one of the things I would like to do to just test them to see how serious they are about their own career or to even give them advice about it is send me an email with your sound and a little bio. And I would always listen to it. And the reason being is like, if you don't want to even do that, are you even serious?
Yeah, that's a good like barrier to entry. Yeah,
so
it's not that difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would go through their SoundCloud, try to kind of organize it. I'm like, okay, this person plays this sound with that. And eventually I started adding residents. My first resident was Arturo, which is one of my closest friends. He goes by Arthur, one of the only DJs who now I like myself who's playing extremely diverse sound.
Okay.
Very professional, knows to play any room. So I added him. Then a couple of months later, I added our friend Alex Ayers, which he goes by Ayers. And then I added John Holloran, which he goes by Holloran from Casbah, who's one of my best friends. And then our newest addition was right before pandemic, Mishi.
Which, yeah.
You know Mishi. She's super, super talented, up and coming. So, we had hard times like everybody else. Like the one good thing that I can say is like my worst night, what am I going to walk with? I'm going to walk with feeling bad that the DJ didn't get to play for a lot of people, but I'm not losing money. I'm not making money when it's the best night, and I'm not losing money when it's the worst night.
So I was actually going to ask, like, are you like on risk financially?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, because every venue agrees. And if they do anything with the bar, usually we try to help with the DJs when we can.
So yeah, what's kind of the arrangement? Because I've talked to other, do you know Baz from Plastic Love?
Of course, Baz is a really close
so Baz has thrown a bunch of stuff, and I was kind of getting his thoughts on like kind of the economics of throwing a party. So like when you throw a party, like, did you like cut a deal with the venue?
So it just usually depends on every venue had a different deal, but usually they work from like somewhere from 10% to 15% after a certain amount. So a lot of places, they have after 2,000, they do 10%. If you do the math, 10%
in terms of bar sales? Okay.
Bar sale. Because a lot of these parties, almost any party I can think of from Monday Social, I don't know any, do you know any like bigger parties that are free? I don't know any, honestly.
No, there's
very rarely, because the cover is usually what pays the DJs and the bar helps the promoters, you know? So it definitely was challenging. Then after a couple of years of Pig and Whistle, Pattern Bar, I don't know how much you know about the history, but it was owned by Eduardo Castillo.
By who?
Eduardo Castillo.
Okay.
He's like a huge burner DJ, like very respected in the community. Beautiful place. He started it, and then he sold it, and he went and opened Habitats in Tulum.
Okay, wow.
Which is a very popular hotel.
I think I see like a lot of like stuff on IG about that. Yeah.
So and then the new owners that they bought it, I guess the word got around. They reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, we heard about you. We heard you doing a weekly." They were bugging me for a while. In a weird sense, when it comes to parties, I don't like change a lot. I like, especially with Temple, because I was, as you mentioned, I was doing a lot of things on my own. I liked it when it was kind of on autopilot. I didn't have to put too much effort to it. So they reached out. They're like, "Hey, if you have a venue?" At first, I said, "No. I'm just been working with these people." Then eventually I said yes. So we went and tried that. And the first one, I think we had Andre from Droog. I don't know if you remember Droog.
Yeah.
So Droog kind of like split up, but Andre still was playing as Droog. And it was a crazy success. Like it was packed. And somehow the venue made so much sense for us.
Okay.
Like Pattern Bar was the first time that Temple just took the next step. Because there wasn't anything happening in that weekly scale in downtown. It was a great time to be in downtown. It was like 3 years ago, because all the parties was moving there. Majority of the good parties were downtown. The Hollywood were Hollywood parties. And everything was just this, they synced together and it just came together. It was perfect. And from that point on, honestly, it just got better and better and better. And we brought everybody. I mean, every year, if you go to Temple's page on Instagram, you'll see at the end of a year, I post a flyer that shows everybody we book. And it's like 100, 150 people sometimes, you know.
Got it.
So everybody got to play there. And as we said, some days we're busy, some days are slow. It's just the name of the game. And there's no formula. Dude, I've been doing this 6 years. In weekly, I promise you, even Freddie will tell you after 20 years of the Monday Social, there's no formula. the more I feel like I figured it out, the less I figured it out. There's nights that I believe it's the best lineup, the RSVP looks good, everything looks good, and nobody shows up.
Right.
And the nights that I'm like, oh, I don't know, this person doesn't have a big following, but let's go with it, and it's packed.
Yeah.
There's no formula with you.
Yeah, it's like the more, I think there's a saying like the more I know, the more
exactly.
I know, I realize what I
Nothing.
don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and I think I went to one, didn't you throw one at Resident, like in the Arts District?
Yeah.
Okay, that was, phenomenal, some phenomenal
Exactly.
venue. Like
So that's another thing. What happened after pandemic is, so I had a weekly kind of deal with Pattern Bar. Then Pattern Bar has a new owner. Nothing against them. They've always been there for us. But it was just, for lack of a better term, wasn't the same vibe that I was looking for. So I decided I don't want to go back to Temple, to Pattern Bar. And I I was very particular about the venue. I didn't find a venue that I want to like pick for weekly. So we were like, let's just recently, for the past couple of months, let's just do once a month or once every couple of weeks. So I did one that was a collaboration with Dialogue and them. It was like, You Know What, Temple, and Borderless. It was the first underground party after pandemic in LA called Back to Life.
Okay.
It's a great success. We did it in downtown at one of the warehouses. And then after that, looking for venues, I found Resident, which is a beautiful, as you said, beautiful venue.
Yeah, really beautiful.
Funny thing, the owner doesn't like DJs for whatever reason. He's an older guy who likes bands.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how good you do financially for them. As I said, Tuesday, that's a lot of them.
His vibe.
Yeah, because we crushed it on a Tuesday, and he was happy because Tuesday nobody makes money in the bar business. So even if you bring 3,000, it's 3,000 they wouldn't make, right?
So even after that, he's just like, no.
He still like was so hard to work with. He just likes bands, and I respect that. This is his venue. So I love the venue, but it wasn't happening. Then the most recent thing, right before I'm about to leave, our friends came and they're like, hey, we just started this venue. It's called Botanic. Or Botanic.
I haven't been,
I never know
but
how to say it.
I think I've seen photos on your gram. It looks very Tulum, like very burner-esque.
Exactly. I mean, their weekend honestly is like kind of a bottle vibe. It's just, but the first thing I told them, and they're very close friends of mine, I'm like, listen, I'll bring the brand there. It's just like, understand that we're not doing bottle service. We're not doing door. We're not doing this bougie stuff. Like, it's just music and this. Right. And they've been super relaxed with us. So the first one was last Tuesday, the 2 Tuesdays ago. Then we had one this past. So we're doing a month of September there, trying it out. I really like the space. The sound is good. I don't know if you saw the picture. The inside looks beautiful.
Yeah, looks amazing.
Yeah, so it's a good home for now. I was thinking about keeping the brand going, but everybody who works with me or like who I respect, they're like, you shouldn't. If you're not here, it doesn't make sense. He's like, you cannot have rumors without Guy Gerber. All day I dream without Lee.
Right, yeah.
I don't like to think like that. I like to think I had nothing to do with it. And it was a community effort. But so I was thinking even running it from there once a month, but they say for now, after this month, I think we might take a pause for a little bit.
Got it. Or your crew can kind of throw a different name, but kind of continue the same vibe. Yeah. One thing you touched on, that I've noticed kind of more at different parties is kind of how bougie things have gotten, to where like, I think, rave used to be about plur and peace, love, and unity, respect, and kind of all inclusiveness. And more when I go to parties, it feels very the opposite of that, right? To where like a ticket to Mayan Warrior costs like $75, and it's very kind of exclusive feeling. Like, are you seeing the same thing? Course, and like, what do you think we can do like as a scene to kind of reverse that trend?
Yeah, I mean, especially post pandemic, we see it more than ever. Reed Speed had a saying years ago, and she said that we all got into electronic music because it was kind of like a subculture, something along these lines, that to escape all the people who were like bullying us, were mean to us. Right. Now the same people we escaped are running our industry.
Yeah.
So there definitely is a shift. Obviously, people understood there's a lot of money to be made. And as somebody who organizes events, even free events, I can see the bigger the events get, the one thing we always have to be realistic with, it does cost money. So we can't be upset at like prices, but what it attracts is just like, once you get to a bigger level of promotion, there's so much you can regulate who gets in, who doesn't get out. There's so much gatekeeping you can do. So sure, like when you're getting to a Paradise at the Park, 6,000 people, Solomon, you can't be upset at like having a couple of people like or a higher price, because it does cost a lot. Like Solomon I charges over 6-figure. I'm not gonna say the number when he plays in LA. So that's crazy. A lot of people, and I was one of them, honestly. It's so easy to sit as a consumer or as a DJ to say like, oh, $20, $30, $40, $50. It sounds crazy, but when you work behind the scene and see all the cost that it goes through it, and don't get me wrong, I'm 100% with you. There's definitely some amount of greed involved, but I genuinely also believe there's a lot of cost in it. Like an argument I always had is for our longest time, especially in LA, I think our scene had a sense of entitlement that people didn't like to pay for parties. Even $20.
I think like you posted, like people are like, oh, guest list.
Yeah. It's like, dude, like I get it. And I don't think I really tapped into this after all these years. I don't think they don't have money. I think they want to feel important. Because I see same people, sorry for being extremely transparent, same people who say they don't have $30 for the door, come inside by $100 worth of drug. Right, so they have the money. It's just a priority. What do you want to spend your money on? And they don't believe that they should spend it at the door. And think about it. If you were promoted and every single one of your friend or the friends of a friend wanted to come, how do you make money? To pay the DJ, I'm running a free party and still is stressful. I can only imagine. And I never understood this concept as an artist, as a person who goes out, till I started doing events. Like, damn, I don't even know how I would pay my DJ if I wanted to. Like with a bigger one, somehow like the bar helps. But imagine as the cost goes up, you have to compensate with the door cover. So there's two different topic we're hitting. The cover being high, I'm kind of like understand some of them, but the people it attracts, I'm with you. I've noticed even for me, the past year alone after pandemic, I've noticed a lot of parties. I don't know if I'm getting old and bitter or it's just a collective us feeling that the newer people, I feel like there's not that plur, there's not that respect. It's more like, this is mine. Right. I own this. You just happen to be here. And there's not respect for people who've been there, put the effort, put the time to get it there. There's definitely a change, but the underground always stays underground. So I feel like, the bigger commercial parties, sure. But if you really want to feel like grimy, sweaty, and not have that experience, there's plenty of good downtown parties on every given Saturday.
That's fair.
For music lovers.
That's fair. I guess especially now I see there's like in the kind of techno scene has kind of carved out its niche. And now it's sort of like I see there's kind of two lanes now where it's like techno and then there's sort of like your playa tech kind of big production. And it's, I like elements of both. So like, I guess what kind of disappoints me about the scene these days is, you know, when I was coming up, they were together. Yeah. And now that they've kind of split apart, it's like, you kind of have to choose like, oh, do you want to go to like grimy warehouse party and only listen to 140 BPM techno all night? Or do you only want to go to, you know, like your playa tech party and, you know, you're paying $100 to get in or whatever.
But to be fair, in the same note is like, we're blessed to be in LA in that sense is we have a party on a Saturday. It used to be like this 2019. Again, this is starting to be like this. This past Saturday was a good example. You have a party for every subgenre. You want to listen to techno, you go to Incognito. You want to listen to minimal, you go to Dialogue. Right. You want to listen to Burner, you would come to where I was playing at Subculture. You want to listen to this sound, that sound. There's a niche for everybody. A lot of other cities like Phoenix, for example, I play there, they have one electronic night on a weekend. Right. So it's kind of cool that we have all these options. It really does come down to consumers. Again, there's a very thin line between being oversaturated, but the craziest part I never understood, this is a very unique time for us in LA, is two things change. As I said, a lot of people don't cry about not paying for events. People are paying, and people are going out to party post-pandemic. When Saturday happened, when I had the Subculture show, I was convinced half of the parties are going to be empty. Like, this doesn't make sense. There's so many. There was 3 Burner parties going against each other. Forget about that's just one niche. And every single event was sold out. Our capacity, I think, was at like 700-800. 1,000 people showed up. So there is a market for it, and people are coming out. They're spending money. But hopefully the future is going to go to a right path and not a greed and just people seeing more brands coming, more expensive. So there's good and bad. There's good that people are like spending money like a $20 ticket and they're not just asking guest list. There's a bad because it's becoming oversaturated and it can be expensive as well.
Yeah, and I guess one way to look at it is like it's so fragmented because it's gotten so big, right? So I guess, you know, like to your point, it's like, oh, we have so much choice now. Yeah. Whereas before, especially like I remember when I was coming up, there weren't that many of those parties. So that's why everything was kind of a little more kind of together. And so like on the one hand, it's like, yeah, we have much more choice. On the other, maybe we've lost some of the unity.
Exactly.
But that's what happens. But, like, I guess, some of the production I've seen these days is, I guess, it's worth the ticket price, right? In terms of like, just like mind blowing visuals and like crazy venues and all of that. So like another thing I wanted to touch on. Oh, here comes a dog. We kind of talked about it, before we started rolling, but like I feel like most kind of interview podcasts in our space aren't really kind of open about the role of like drugs and substance. And I say on the one hand, I feel like certainly when you combine, a drug like MDMA with music, the total is definitely greater than the sum of the parts. It definitely combines into something that's really phenomenal. And I think there's also a dark side to it too, though, where if you're not careful, the scene can kind of like chew you up and spit you out, and you can kind of lose your soul to it. So I guess, like without naming names and stuff, have you seen that kind of?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of this. Like me and Chris from Dance Spirit, we did a lot of work on mental health. We would do an event at Temple for suicide awareness. I've dealt with it. He dealt with it. And listen, I'm about substance as much as the next person. We all done it. Probably a lot of us got to the music because that was part of the culture. The one thing I always say in any interviews is the one thing I saw changing personally from then to now. I don't know if it's just me also changing with it as well. And I'm sure you can relate to partying in New York. I feel like a lot of the time back then, you would go to a party, people always did drugs in parties. The one thing that I felt like it was different, they were doing drugs it felt like, even including myself, like to enhance their experience.
Right.
Like you wanted music to sound better. You wanted the visual to sound cooler. Right. You wanted to feel more connected with people. I walk around the clubs, this is not just post-pandemic, the past 3, 4, 5 years, I feel like I'm in zombie land.
Interesting.
Like people are just like numbing themselves. It's not about like, just enhancing your experience. It just feels like people are just trying to deal with other stuff. Like I was joking with Chris on the phone today. I'm like, dude, I feel like our music, the DJ portion of that has become the elevator music. It's like, it's not even about the event. It's just we playing background music for people to get high.
Wow. So you're like, at least at some parties, you're seeing that the drugs
at a lot of parties
gone to the forefront.
Yeah. And I'm not a hypocrite. As I said, like I've done it. I just went sober, like again, a couple of weeks ago, like a little bit over a week ago. And I've always been an advocate on moderation. And I made a post about this Facebook the other day. The past few months, I've noticed a lot of my circle, close and far, people are dealing with severe mental health more than ever, right? And the one common denominator with all of them, including me again, to not sound like a hypocrite, was drugs, And I don't think the drugs are ever a problem. The problem is like your state of mind.
Yeah, so it's just like a symptom of the problem, right?
Yeah, if you're dealing with something at home or in your personal life, you think a party and a drug combination is gonna make it go away or numb it. Right. It's not. Maybe if temporarily it will help, but eventually it does more damage. And even as a DJ, when you're performing, it sucks because sometimes, like, I was joking with somebody else the other day, like to even be extra transparent, like ketamine, for example. A lot of people who are on it, I don't know if you've seen or not, they just, when they're in a cable
you're dissociated, so you're not even present.
There.
Yeah, you're not
Imagine
there.
you're DJing for a bunch of people on ketamine, you start eating yourself up, that like, damn, I suck. Nobody's moving. The reality is they might like it, they might not like it. They can't give you anything back even if they wanted to. So what does that leave you? A lot of artists leave, they're like, I suck. This was a bad set. So again, the drugs will always be there. I think what we need to talk about more in our scene, which I'm really an advocate of it, is talk about mental health. I feel like that's the real problem. Is a lot of people, including DJs, dude. There's like finally the past 5 years, even A-list DJs, they're talking about mental health. It's a real
Sasha
thing.
Came out and talked about it.
It's scary to talk about because people are like, "Oh, dude, you have the best life. What are you complaining about?" And that's true. Like it's hard to complain about when they're on their private jet.
Right. Or like Avicii. Look at what happened to Avicii.
Yeah, dude. Like if you see, there's a good documentary. I think it's called "Slave to the Rhythm." It's It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And Luciano talks like.
Oh, I did see that.
That's a great one. And one of the comparisons they say is like the ups and downs are so extreme in our scene. Is like you go in front of a 5,000 crowd, get the most love and like high and like all these feelings. Then you go to the hotel room by yourself. So the like highs and lows are so extreme. So a lot, and it's hard to keep. I do that. Like I personally can tell you, it's hard to keep a healthy relationship in our industry because our industry is demanding to us. Our first love is always music. So and it's hard to date somebody, guy or girl, who's constantly doing shows around people, around temptation, whatever the case is. So it does affect your mental health because you do love that. You love your music. It's your passion, but also how do I balance my family time, my friend time, and somebody like me even, like I spend 99% of my time, even before pandemic, especially in the scene. Hi.
Oh, my dog is freaking out. It's all right, buddy.
So yeah, it's just like finding that balance. Like I always had this line, especially for DJ. One thing I hated to see that bothers me the most is in the interview I said there's a thin line between a DJ booth and a dance floor. A lot of these people who are dancing and letting loose, even the ones who are doing a lot of drugs, in a weird way, this is a whole another conversation. They're in the rights because they have a normal life. That's their escapism, right? But what I saw that I hated the most is us as a DJ sometimes get lost on the other side. The reality is like my job is to entertain them and I get paid well for it.
Right.
A lot of DJs. I would see A-list DJs like get in a K-hole in the middle of a set and collapse.
You have seen that?
I've seen that.
Wow.
I'm not going to name anybody, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people know who. To me, that's extremely disrespectful. Even for me, it's experimenting, having fun, trying different things. The one rule I always had, and any promoter will tell you in LA, I'm always sober when I DJ. To me, that's a job. I'm not going to show up at my job high. If I ever wanted to party, it would be after. Never before, never during the set. So it's just, you got to treat it like a job. It's so disrespectful for you getting paid this much money. And I'm seeing that even more recently. Like A-list DJ headliners come in, they're smashed, they black out. In the middle of a set, they press pause. And then people are still clapping and putting them on a pedal. It makes no sense to me, dude. So the cultures, I think we're glorifying the drug culture more than usual, which again...
Do you think that's like because people are coming out of the pandemic and they just want to,
100%. I think that like it's this feeling of I survived death. I got to do it more. Like even at the end of 2018, 2019, me and Chris and a lot of people, we were very well spoken about like how there's no balance anymore. There's a lot of like abuse of substance. But now is like we're trying to, post-pandemic is still there. It's not that it's a new thing. But you're right. Maybe it's just me. I feel like people are pushing it a little bit more.
Okay.
And that's maybe because they've been in a cage.
Right.
and they're free.
Are people doing different drugs? Do you think that's part of it too? Or
possibly. I mean, there is a whole new drugs going around as well.
Because I feel like there's always new shit.
Yeah, there's always. But the classics are always there. I think they just do a more amount of it. And again, I mean this again with zero hypocrisy because I've done it myself.
Right, yeah,
and even for me, stopping a couple of weeks ago, I've always had moderation. Even my a lot is a lot of my friends one day.
Right.
So for me, I've never pushed it, but I'm very good at like putting myself at check. There was a couple of things that happened. I'm like, okay, it's time to take a break.
Right.
And again, like one of the status I put 2 days ago, which was genuinely from my heart, and they did a lot better than I thought, was kind of along the line of like, I'm tired of going out and seeing my friends dealing with these battles and nobody's talking about it. We become such a like culture that nobody wants to bum you out. We enable each other's bad behavior. I see my friends like in a K-hole, G'd out on the floor. People just walk by, that's just Johnny, that's just Kimmy. That's not okay. We gotta hold each other accountable. Like I had a friend who I DJ with like a week ago and I'm like, dude, I felt so uncomfortable the night I went home because he wasn't himself. I had to call him and be like, dude, I have to say something. You were not yourself. It's like, I'm glad you checked on me. I've been going through depression and I'm sober 2 weeks. And I really wanted to kind of perform. It's your last month here and I couldn't. It's something so simple. It sounds stupid, but it's crazy how far it goes. I understand in a party environment, it's not a right setting to be like, hey, come here, tell me about your family and problems. But be friendly enough if you really care about somebody. If you see something, say something that New York's saying. It's like if you see them struggling, go home, pick up the phone, be like, dude, are you okay? Because people don't talk about it till it's
Yeah,
too
that's
late.
hard though, because like, to your point, it's like you're right. Like the party scene is all about positive vibes, and you don't want to bum anyone out, and it's like such a difficult thing to broach. But you're right. I think like it's if as a raver, it's like it's like your responsibility to say something if you see something.
Of course.
Well, yeah, appreciate you being like so transparent about that kind of thing. Cause yeah, like, one of the things that I try to do on this show is to like shine more of a spotlight on that because, we were talking a little bit before the show, like I think with all the money that goes into this scene and all the corporate sponsorships, it's sort of like people turn a blind eye to what it is, and it's like, Mix Mag Lab brought to you by Coors Light. And it's like very much kind of like this artifice of like, oh, nothing's going on here. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And yet like, if you turn on a video on YouTube of like Tomorrowland or something, you actually look at the crowd in the background, you're like, oh, everyone there is like really fucked up.
I mean, this is nothing new, dude. It's like if the band's era, same thing.
Yeah.
The drugs is always going to be there.
Yeah, drugs and music,
I don't
right?
think
There's something about
I don't
the
think the
marriage
issue
about the
is,
two.
as I keep saying, it's not just the drugs. The drugs are issue. The issue is a lot of mental health issue. The issue is like we're not dealing with our problems as a society. We just constantly create a new Band-Aid to put on our problems. And right now, I feel like that's the Band-Aid people are using. It's just a lot of people, especially post-pandemic, whether we like to admit it or not, talking about transparency, everybody's dealing with some kind of like trauma.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah, coming out of the last,
but
4
people
years.
think this is the way to numb it right now.
Yeah.
And there's been so much death. I don't know if you know now that it's like the past couple of months from bad drugs, from suicide. These are the reasons it's making me being so outspoken. Because some are friends that they went through this experience. And unfortunately, we always been a culture. It's just like people glorify it when somebody's dead, when it's too late. Like, oh, that sucks that they went through this. But when they needed the help, nobody helped them.
Sorry, guys. The dog here is upset. So I guess, like switching gears to something like a little more positive.
Let's do it.
It looks like you're moving to Barcelona Barcelona, correct?
Yeah.
So I guess, what do you kind of have in store for yourself there? Is it just a change of scenery, or do you have kind of like an agenda in terms of DJing?
I mean, I'm sure like that's gonna always be part of it, the DJing part. But the main reason, honestly, is just change of scene. Is I've been here for like over 10 years, and again, going back to what we were talking about, I've never had like a specific destination thing. I had crazy opportunities the past couple of years to move to Europe. For personal reasons, I couldn't do it. And now that personal reason is not there for me. So I feel like I'm the type of person, I like to do things. And if I don't do them, like taking big risks, if I don't do it, I'm always going to wonder what would happen. So I'm not going there with any expectation. If anything, this is probably one of the best points I've been in my career as far as getting paid, getting gigs. I'm leaving it all behind just because I want to grow as a person and as an artist. Just overall, I need new experiences. So LA is always going to be there. New York is going to always be there. I have family in both cities. Any way I looked at it, there's nothing bad is going to come out of it. I'm going to go learn Spanish, meet new people. I always had interest in European lifestyle. And I like how like everything for the price that I spent Saturday night on an Uber in LA, I can go to another country round trip. Yeah. It's the beauty of living there. And every time I go there, I did a couple of shows there. Like usually I used to plan my Euro shows around AD. So I would go to Amsterdam. Since I'm there already, paid for the flight, kind of do a travel, go play. Like the last 2019, we had a great like little tour, me and my friend Tino, who does Techno Taco Tuesday in Vegas. We played in Madrid, we played in Berlin, we played in Bilbao, we played in Hamburg, we played like I think we did 6 or 7, Paris, like a couple of shows. And one thing I always loved about Europe that inspires me is what I was telling you earlier. It's just like, I know it sounds cliche, everywhere's like, oh, Berlin, blah, blah, blah. But they really do get it. And I think the simple formula is they really don't care about who you are. They only care about music. Like even like I played at like me and him played in Hamburg at Wagenbach, which is like the main club, main time. And me having like kind of this LA experiences, people were like going crazy while we're playing. I'm like, damn, we're gonna come down and everyone's gonna be like, yo, you crushed it. We came down, nobody can acknowledge us. So they only care about you at that moment, which I love. It's not about you, it's about that experience you're creating. Nobody's talking on the dance floor, people taking their phone away. It's genuinely about music. And I think That's why they feel like a little bit ahead or more ahead of us, because all the other things that you kind of were even touching on, like the outfits, all this other thing goes away. I'm sure there's places everywhere in the world for that, but as a whole in the industry, I really think they're really pushing experimenting.
Interesting.
Which we don't get a lot here. So two of the things I look forward to is kind of really tap to different sounds when I'm there. Also, hopefully for personal agenda, I would like to finish a lot of my projects that I started, because I know I'm not going to do as much gigs that I do here when I get there. I want to just kind of focus on that. And I did save enough money to go there for a year, so I'm not going to be stressing that, like, if I don't find something to chase anything, you know. So I'm going with zero expectation pretty much. We'll do it for a year. If it works out, cool. If not, and after a year, regardless, I can come back or I can extend my thing and stay there.
Right. But I guess, what do you think accounts for like why the Europeans seem to do it so much better than we do?
I honestly don't know. Like,
yeah, everyone I know.
Like,
I haven't been able to. I partied in Paris once, you know, like maybe like 10, 12 years ago. And yeah, I definitely noticed a difference in vibe. And yeah, I just don't know.
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, with LA specifically, I feel like it's our social media culture. Like LA, like I genuinely believe this city is built on social media. People make money from social media, right? So
it's like the entertainment.
Yeah, we even tried, like Dialogue tried, for example, Underground Party, to put stickers on people's phone to create that culture. People would take it off. And I explained this to our friends, because we meet once in a while to like talk about what we can do for industry as a whole. And I was like, dude, let's just accept the fact that phones will never go away in LA. It's part of our culture. People go at Catch LA to take a picture in front of a door with flowers on it. It's not about the restaurant itself or the food. It's just about being seen. Or there was a club bar in Hollywood. Do you remember Beetlejuice?
No.
That the bar was going down, not making money. They made it a Tim Burton themed restaurant. Food was trash, but beautiful for entertainment.
Right.
And they crushed it. They were booked for 3 months, because this is the city we live in. You don't need to spend money on advertisement. People come, influencers come, they record your thing.
Selfie traps.
So I think that kind of disassociation is coming from like our culture of obsessed with social media. The one thing that you ask any New Yorker DJs, the Tenaglia is very open about this. I've seen him at Exchange playing 7 years ago. While he's playing, people are recording him with flash in Exchange LA. He gets on the mic. He's like, dude, I'm not here to model. I'm not Swedish House Mafia. I'm here to play music. If you don't put your phone down, I want to leave.
Oh, wow.
Like for them, they're not used to that. A lot of New York DJs don't like playing in LA. I've always said, again, when I make this general statement, I'm talking about as a whole, not the proper underground scene, is as a whole, the city, I always felt like it has the most distracted dance floor. It's so hard to connect with them. People are talking. The other day I saw at a gig, this lady was talking to her kids, yelling at her kids in front of a DJ booth while the DJ is mixing. And everybody's looking at her like, dude, just have enough respect to take 3 steps away. They don't care. It's just like, and it's so rough on the DJ, like kind of like what we were talking about, what happened this week. Is sometimes it's not you. And a lot of times you feel like it's you. People are distracted. They're chatting in the front. They like taking selfies, the flash in your face. Like they cannot just kind of let all of it go and be in the moment. Hopefully there's places that they do tap into that. Hopefully we can even tap into it more. But the one thing I think they did that we didn't do for whatever specific reason, they really learned to like, this is our time to let go of everything outside.
Right.
And I wish we can kind of
this is our bubble to be present in the moment.
I wish we could force the phones. I feel like that's a whole different argument I don't want to get into. I feel like phone and social media in general is pushing us, making us go backward as like evolution goes.
And actually, yeah, I think that brings up a question for me about, you know, I'm noticing that in this day and age, like if you're an upcoming DJ, you know, you kind of have to be like an IG influencer at the same time. Yeah. And that's something that DJs in the past didn't have to deal with. Like, do you feel that pressure as well?
100%, dude. Like we had this talk. That's another thing I like about Temple. I like to find the guys or the girls that are like really talented, but unfortunately socially awkward, not good at their social marketing. Whether we like to admit it or not, this is the industry we live in. You can be the most talented artist in the world. Nobody's going to find out about you if you don't have a social media presence. A lot of people fight against it, but a lot of people eventually, you have to understand, if you're not good at it, hire a team that's good at it to do it for you. If you feel like your music has a lot of potential, right? So I took a break from social media during 2020 and it felt amazing, but I genuinely cannot do that. It doesn't matter how much it hurts my mental health. If it does, I can't stop because everything we do is through social media. there is nobody passing flyers anymore. So
Right.
you post your flyers on there. I do believe, personal again experience, I'm very big on organic growth. I got offered many times in these years of experience of ghost production, buying followers. I've never liked shortcuts because to me, like, I'm not into faking it. I'd rather not make it till, so a lot of people like, oh dude, like we can make a music, you go from here to here. It's like, I'd rather never make it and just make it on my own. So that is also like it's shitty, for lack of a better term, that people are getting to huge levels of DJing because they have very strong social media presence.
Right.
They have like hundreds of thousands. You can literally like fake anything. You can fake yourself. I think somebody did that. I remember fake themselves at a festival DJing, and they would send
I read an article on Vice.
Yeah,
girl,
I think they send it to promoters, and promoter booked them based on that.
Yeah,
like like the problem with social media is this mirage. Everybody puts this front of who they are. Nobody posts their saddest moment on there. It's like it's what you want to be known for or seen for. So I'm not against social media. We need it. But I'm big on like finding that balance to not let it consume you. And if one advice I can give to somebody is listening, who's like interested, which I always do to the people I find, if you have a talent and you got that thing that is the most important, and the other portion you just simply don't have the social skills, hire people.
Right.
You have to do it. And I love that about Temple. Like that was my passion project, finding those kids that know. Like some people would hit me up, dude, like this guy has 7 followers on Instagram. Is he good? Like, that sounds like so stupid to me, but it's reality in our industry, right?
Yeah, like it sucks that that's the way it has to be.
But it's the reality.
Somebody with 7 followers, who's to say that they're not a sick producer or a sick DJ or whatever? And
if you're like really, especially producer, but DJing is a whole different world. If you're a really good producer and like they spend their like day and night in the studio. You think they have time to like put a filter, edit picture, and add a caption? They don't want to do anything.
Right. Well, with that, man, just want to thank you again for taking the time and, talking about everything. I feel like this is like, the full behind the music here, from someone who's actually, a legit veteran, doing this for 10 years now, and doing it really well, from everything I've seen. So I guess in terms of, letting folks know like how they can follow you and stuff, that if you want to kind of give your socials and everything.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Sorry it took forever.
No.
I'm glad we finally did it. My social media is like all over the place. Speaking of doing a better job, I'm terrible at it myself. My Instagram is _Ray_Kash because somebody decided to take Ray Kash like 7 years ago with 2 posts. So that's my Instagram, Facebook, Ray Kash with a K, and SoundCloud, same thing, Ray Kash. And SoundCloud, I think, is cool to kind of get to know me as an artist, because one thing I did, especially in 2020, is like put a mix of different genres that I play. I have everything in there. I have from deep house, tech house, techno, minimal, a little bit of everything.
Got it. Yeah, man. And, like wish you the best of luck in Spain. And I'm sure, we're going to continue to see big things from you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Like it's my turn. Enough attention to other people.
Well, in the meantime, folks, don't forget to like and subscribe. Apologies for the loud dog today. And until next time.
Thank you. Bye.